Welcome to AM. My name's Richard Conway, and this is the platform for age group multisport athletes to showcase their journeys. Along to AMP. We're on episode 15. Thank you for listening to our podcast. I hope you're enjoying the stories, and if it's your first time here listening to the podcast, we have 14 other episodes and they feature a wide range of age group multisporters who have a wealth of knowledge and some fantastic stories about their journey into multisport. And so if you'd like to leave us a comment or get in touch, and we will have all the information of the multimedia addresses at the end of the show. In today's interview, we speak to Brock Gibbs. He's from Canada, so we're going truly international. In his day job, he's a PE teacher, he's an age grouper, multi-sporter, and an author. Yeah, he's wrote a book, and I'm in the middle of reading his book. And I've got to say, really enjoying it. Really enjoying it. It's funny. Book about triathlon that's actually funny. There you go. The book's called My Co-Workers Think I'm a Pro. So that in the title just tells you how I think amusing that the book is going to be, and it's not letting me down. So really enjoying that, as I've said. And I'll stop saying I'm really enjoying it, but I am. So Brock will be coming up in a bit. I hope you enjoyed the interview. Bit of an insight into the book that he's written during the interview, so might give you a feel for the book, and you might even go out and buy it, as I did. He didn't send me a freebie, it's not autographed, I actually got it on Kindle. So that's Brock, and he'll be coming up in it. Before we go into our latest age group multi-sporters race news, we will just have to discuss the fact that we're going back into lockdown. It was announced earlier on this week that we're going into lockdown for a month. Sad, inevitable in my opinion, but we've just got to get through it and adapt again. The fortunate thing is that we've all experienced it before. It's not our first time. Just got to get through it. We've got to stay safe. We've got to try and keep training. Try to keep up the continuity and adapt. There won't be any pools open. There won't be any gyms open for us to use, and I just got back into swimming as well. Gutted. Could almost do a full length again. Blimey. So I'm going to miss that. So it'll be back to square one for me when we get back into the pool. On the positive side, I got some weights in the summer and a bench, so we can keep up with the strength training in the garage. So that'll be all right. And Zwift will be getting some hammer now, and well, we can still run outside together, me and Mrs. C, so that won't be so bad. So you just got to put a positive spin on it, and we'll get through it. So, as I said, stay safe, everyone, and keep going. So, on to our previous guests that have been doing some races over the last couple of weeks. Megan Powell from episode 13, unlucky for some. She took part in the 10k that was held at the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park, and by the looks of it, she had a really good race and a really good time, considering that she's doing her finals to become a doctor, and she's a very busy young lady. So well done, Megan. Great result. Jules Richards from episode 3, he was running a 5k for charity, which was all in aid of the Try to Triumph Foundation, and it was an event called Masquerade where you had to do a 5k in a mask, and Jules had the genius idea of wearing a horse's head, and I saw all this on Instagram when the Instagram post came up, and he appeared there with this big plastic horse's head, and it turned out it didn't have any eyelets in it, so he couldn't see where he's going. So the first thing he had to do was drill some holes so he could actually see where he was running. But he completed it in a decent time, I believe. So well done, Jules. And it was for a great cause. So if you want to head over to Instagram and have a look at Jules Richards' posts, and maybe donate something to the foundation. Episode 9's Yanni Christodoulu's been at it again. He keeps saying this is his final race, and then he ends up doing another one. This time he did the Maidstone/Duathlon, and he finished second. He's on a right roll at the moment. I think out of his 4 races, he's landed on the podium 3 times. So another great result there from Yanni. And if you want to hear more about his race, then just head over to Yanni's YouTube channel, and all the information's there and his stories there. So give it a look, give it a listen, give it a watch. And finally, me and Mrs. C took part in the Great Grimsby Virtual 10K, and we were supporting our local event organiser, Tape to Tape, who've organised quite a few races that we've taken part in. And I think the reason why Mrs. C wanted to do it was because they were giving away a nice bright orange long sleeve tee, and also to help out obviously our local event organiser. They're having a bit of a rough time at the moment, so it's nice to help them out, and even if it's just a virtual race, then it keeps them rolling, and hopefully they'll be there for us next year when all this is over and putting on the great events that they have done in the past that we can all take part in. So thank you to Tape to Tape for putting on that event, and it's a great top and we love it. So that's it. On to the interview. As I say, it's Brock Gibbs from Canada, and very funny man. Hope you enjoy it, and we'll see you on the other side. So keep training. Exercise is good for your body and your mind. It helps so much. Get outside as much as you can. Most people in multisport know this anyway, so I'm speaking to the converted. If you want to get involved with some virtual races, Nick Price is still running virtual duathlons at weekends. Go over to his Facebook page and find out more information there. It's really good. I've done a couple myself and probably do a few more over the winter. And just look after yourselves and your loved ones, and stay safe. Hi, Brock.
Hi.
Welcome to AMP.
Oh, thank you.
Lovely to have you on the podcast, and thank you for coming on and sharing your story.
Good to be here. Thank you very much.
Can you tell us whereabouts in the world that you are?
I'm in just on the south shore of Montreal in Quebec, Canada.
Right. Okay. And have you lived there all your life?
Well, I was born here, lived here most of my life, lived here until I was about 17, then I went away to school.
Right.
And stayed away for, 4 or 5, 6 years, and then came back.
Yeah, okay. You like it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cold in the winter?
Very, very cold in the winter.
Yeah, I follow Triathlon&Duathlon. Yeah. And he's obviously up that neck of the woods.
Yeah, he's in an even colder place. He's in Manitoba, so it's even worse.
Yeah, and I really do sympathise, to be honest. It must be quite fun to try and get your training round when it's that cold.
Well, when it's that cold, cycling at least for sure is all inside. I mean, you can't. It's too dangerous to go outside. You kill yourself.
Of course. Yeah. So let's get to it. If you can tell us a little bit about you growing up. In sporting context, and how you found multisport.
Sure. Growing up, I was pretty much like most Canadian boys. I was a hockey player. Started when I was about 4 years old and went all the way up through until I played in university and everything. And that was pretty much it. I played also American football. Never did soccer, which is kind of weird. My son plays a lot of soccer, but I didn't do that. I was a canoeist, provincial level canoeist, went to the national championships and that a number of times. And but in terms of stuff that would be would have led me to triathlon, there wasn't that much growing up here, especially in Montreal, in French Canada. Not a whole lot of cycling and swimming events and stuff like that. In fact, I didn't even know that cycling events existed.
Yeah.
Every year we'd watch, the Hawaii Ironman on TV, but that was pretty much it. There was that and the one in Lake Placid. So we didn't really get into that much. When I got a little bit older, I moved to Vancouver, and I met a guy, and he was a runner. So I decided to start going running with him, and I had been running previously to train for other sports, just off and on in the off season. But this guy was really into it, and he coaxed me to do a few 10K races, 5K races, things like that. And I didn't know much about it, didn't know if I was any good or anything, but I ended up being better than him. So,
Right.
so I figured, okay, that's all I needed. I could beat one guy at least.
Yeah.
And then that was pretty much that. I kept doing that, and then I moved back east to do a master's degree in Nova Scotia.
Okay.
And I would go out running every day just to stay in shape. And there was this one guy that would pass me on his bike. We were way out in the middle of nowhere in Nova Scotia. And this guy would pass me on his bike almost every time I was out there. And I thought, this is strange. He seems like a stalker. Every time I come out, this guy's always going past me and looking back and still kind of staring at me. And then one day he passed me and he looked back. And he had a weird look on his face. I thought, oh, what's going to happen here? And he turned around, and I thought, okay, well, I started to prepare myself for a good fight. I figured, do I hit this guy before he gets off the bike? That's probably my best bet. But I thought he was going to start a fight or something. He came back. Turned out he was the cross-country running coach
Right.
at the university, and asked me if I wanted to join the team. I didn't even know what cross-country running was. I thought, okay, I thought you mean we have to run across the country? I don't know if I'm up for that. Canada's a pretty big place, But no, he explained it to me, and so I went out and ended up doing quite well in that. Finished fourth in the national championships.
And what age was that?
That was would have been about 21 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was in doing my master's degree at university.
Yeah.
So, and that was pretty much it. And I moved from there to Montreal, kept running, doing 10K races here and there. And I got my first job as a teacher. I'm a physical education teacher.
Yeah.
And before school, I would go running just to train, just to stay in shape. And a couple of teachers at the school were runners. And they asked me if I wanted to join them in this gigantic relay race around Cape Breton Island in Nova Scotia. And I said, well, sure, sounds good. I had never run more than a 10K in my life. And they said, okay, the first leg of the race you're doing is 18 kilometers up a big mountain. Okay, well, I don't know if I can make that. I've never done it before. And I did well, came in second, and I did another leg of the race. I think I came in third or fourth in that. And then after that, I came back home to Montreal. My brother had been training for a marathon in Quebec City. And marathon, I didn't even know how long it was. I just figured that's people do that distance by car. That's just way too long. I can't even imagine. And he coaxed me and said, yeah, you probably have time. Why don't you sign up for the race with me? I had about 3 weeks left. So I said, okay, well, whatever. I joined the race with him, and we made a pact at the beginning of the race. Look, we'll stay together just because, I don't want to get dropped here. And we started out, and I was a bit worried because it seemed like I feel like I'm dragging him down, like I'm holding him back. So I told him, look, if you want to go, just go. He said, no, we'll stay together. So we kept running and running. And I noticed that the pace was really slow. But I figured, it must be because it's such a long race. And I asked my brother, why don't we just pick it up a bit, He said, look, 42 kilometers, man, that's a long way to go. Mm. Let's just keep it where it is. And I said, well, why don't we just pick it up? So there's a big crowd of people in front of us. I went right, he went left, and that was the last I saw of him so I finished the race. It went very well until 30 kilometers in when I hit the wall, where everybody hits the wall at 30 kilometers. But I'd never done that before. And it was like, oh, wow, this is horrible. I had to walk, and I threw up and everything. But I ended up finishing in under 3 hours, qualified for the Boston Marathon.
Wow.
And I couldn't find my brother anywhere. It turns out I beat him by about an hour and a half. So.
Wow. yeah. Brilliant.
So from there, I just I figured I'm pretty good at this running stuff. So I did the Boston Marathon, did a few other marathons. And that led me up to basically how I got into triathlon.
Yeah.
I was on my way to the Boston Marathon one year. and it's about a 5.5 hour drive to Boston from Montreal. And I had done it a couple times, and I figured this is long and boring. So what I did was I went to the library and I took out a book on CD, and it was a Bill Bryson book. I don't know if you know who Bill Bryson is.
Yeah, I've heard of him, yeah.
He was a travel writer, and he was writing it. There was a book that I wanted to listen to about him in his adventures along the Appalachian Trail. So I thought, I'll get that book. That'll be great. It'll be perfect. And I threw it in the radio, the machine on my car, and it wasn't the right book. Someone put the wrong CD in there. It was Lance Armstrong's book.
Oh.
It's not about the bike.
Right. I've read it.
And yeah, and I was really interested. Oh, it's a great book.
Yeah. And
that got me really interested in cycling. So after that, I started reading everything I could about cycling and studying cycling. I thought, I got to race my bike. I got to find a way to race my bike. But I was too stupid to realize that there were races out there that you could do on your bike. Around here, they don't have that. At least I didn't think they had that. So I thought about it, and I figured the only way I can race my bike is if I do the middle portion of a triathlon. So I figured I got to get into triathlon. So that's basically the story of how I got into triathlon.
And was that a local triathlon, or did you have to travel for that as well?
I could have done local ones, but I had family in the United States, in Connecticut, which is again about 4 or 5 hours. So I did one there. It was a disaster.
Bit warmer?
Not much, but it was in the summertime, so it didn't matter.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, in the summertime, it gets very hot here.
And what was that? What type of tri was that?
That was I chose the shortest one I could, so it was a sprint.
Sprint, yeah.
And the way I prepared for that was I continued running, and I had been cycling now. So again, I was too silly to understand that I should have been actually swimming instead of just buying a wetsuit.
Right.
And so when I zipped up the wetsuit all the way to the top on race day, which is the first time I did that.
Yeah.
It was tight. It was a lot tighter than I had imagined a wetsuit being. And when I got in the water, boy, I panicked. I had a full-on, and I never had one before, a full-on major panic attack. I didn't know how I was going to do it.
Yeah.
And I ended up starting to swim, and every buoy and every kayak that I came across, I just held on for dear life. In fact, I remember the first kayak, I grabbed onto it, and I looked at the little teenager who was paddling it, and I said, "Am I allowed to hold on?" And he said, "Yeah, no problem." And I was fully prepared to tell him, "Look, if you tell me I can't hold on to this thing, I'm flipping you out and I'm getting in because I can't do this." And he said to me, he actually said, "Look, you can hold on. I just can't move you forward at all." And I thought, you SOB, man. That's all I want you to do is paddle me to the finish line. But I ended up finishing, and I didn't get over it or anything. I have no idea. As soon as I hit the shore, though, all my fears went away, and I did the bike and the run very, very well.
Yeah.
It's just that first swim, and I've heard a lot of people, I wrote a book, and that's the first chapter, and a lot of people who have read the book, they read that and they say, "Oh yeah, I had that same experience."
Yeah, it's a common thing, isn't it, I think? How many tries did you do from then to then? And how was the process? So obviously that was a sprint, and I take it you're doing longer distances now. That's what you do. That's your thing. Half and full Ironman. Yeah, is that what you do? So
that's right.
How long was that process, and how did that take shape?
Well, about two weeks after that sprint triathlon, as soon as I got home from the sprint triathlon, I signed up for an Olympic distance, which was a lot closer to home. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I figured I'll move to that next level. Yeah. And that one was a lot closer. It was in Ottawa, Ontario, which is an hour and a half, 2 hours from where I live. And but I was still a little apprehensive about the swimming, so I figured I gotta get better at this, because that can't happen again. So I did two things. One, I wore my wetsuit all day, every day, just so that I would be used to it. Even though it was like 32 degrees outside, I was sweating like crazy. I almost killed myself. And I have a pool in the backyard of my house here. It's an above-ground pool with big sidewalls. And so I figured, okay, I got to do something there. So what I did was I put my feet over the edge, and I just tried swimming until my feet were bleeding. So that didn't work. Then I tried just swimming back and forth. But it's like it's 20 feet across. Yeah. It's too strong. Yeah. And go against the very small jet where the water comes in. So that got me ready. That got me ready to do the swim. From there, I did I signed up for a half Ironman in Montreal this time.
Right.
And I did it on my road bike, and that went well enough. I actually went quite well. So I figured from there I had to do two things. I had to find an event that had the word Ironman in it, and I had to buy a tri bike or a TT bike because everybody else, all the cool riders had a TT bike. So that's what I did. I didn't know how expensive they were, however.
Right.
And I kept calling it a triathlon bike. So every store I went to, like bike shop, and I would tell them I'm looking for a triathlon bike, they would look at me and laugh and think, okay, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about because no one calls it a triathlon bike, at least not around here. Apparently it's a TT bike, but I didn't know that. Boy, did I even look like an idiot in all those bike shops. But I eventually got one. And then early the following summer, I did my first Ironman branded Ironman 70.3 race in Syracuse, New York, which again is about 6 hours from home.
Yeah.
And in that race, that's when I first qualified. I qualified right away in that race to do the World Championships.
Right. Okay.
So my progression was really quick.
Yeah.
And in fact, the World Championships that year, I can't remember the actual year, they were in Las Vegas.
Right.
And which was an experience because, I mean, that's far from me. That's a plane journey, airplane journey. So so I flew out there and I convinced my girlfriend to join me and our son. She was out because she's a teacher as well, and it happens just when school's starting. So I don't know if we should do that. And I said, no, you come. It'll be great. It's Las Vegas. The weather's predictable. It's sunny all the time. Well, we were there for 4 days and it rained for 4 days.
Oh, no.
Even though they only get 4 days of rain a year, but anyway, that's what happened. The race went really well. Prior to the race, though, I had regular standard wheels on my tri bike, my TT bike. But I decided I wanted to rent some really nice ones with the big deep,
the deep rims.
Yeah, and so I tried them. I rented them and I put them on my bike. Tried them out on a windy day, and I almost killed myself.
Oh, no.
I blew across the road. I kept falling off my bike. But the race went well, and I finished 7th in my age group.
That's cool.
In the world. So that was quite an experience.
Yeah.
Since then, I've not done anything shorter than a half Ironman.
So that's your distance. You think that's the one you?
Yeah, that's my favorite. I've done full Ironmans, and they were. Again, I urge everybody who's listening to buy my book called "My Coworkers Think I'm a Pro," where I go through everything. It's a very funny book.
Yeah.
But it goes through my experiences doing Ironman, which were brutal. It's you figure half Ironman and then full Ironman. Okay, everything's double. Yeah. Double training, double nutrition, well, it's not. It's so much more. It's like it's a whole different beast. And I've raced running ultra marathons before, 100 kilometers, 100 miles, and they were nothing compared to what I went through during my first full Ironman. Yeah. I thought I was going to die for sure.
Really?
Oh yeah, it was just I wasn't expecting it. I just had it. I guess in my mind, everything looked exactly like every other race.
Yeah.
You know, the racing village, the Ironman banners, the pre-race meeting, all that was the same.
Yeah.
But the race was not the same. Even the swim, I remember it was in Lake Placid. And I went down to the beach and I looked out at the boys, the course markers, and I thought, well, geez, that looks just like a half Ironman. This is going to be a piece of cake. At least, it feels the same. So I did that. I got in the water, did the swim, went out, came back, and got onto the beach, and everybody was sort of turning and going back in the water, and I thought, well, what are you doing? Like, we're done. And the guy says, no, dude, you got to do it twice. It's a full Ironman. Okay, that's when I had my first notion. Oh, this might be a little different. Yeah. Same thing with the bike. It was 90. It's in the mountains, in Lake Placid, New York. It's steep.
Yeah.
And it's twice around the 90-kilometer loop. And I did the first loop, and at the end of the first loop, I had never been that tired in my life in any race ever, and I still had 90K to go and a marathon to run. I thought, I don't know how I'm going to do it. Like I even told myself when I finally finished the second loop, I convinced myself before I got off my bike, okay, I'm ending the race now. I'm not going to do the run. But I had to go to the bathroom really bad in transition, so I did, and it was a number 2, and it was brutal. But I felt good afterwards. I felt light. My suit fit better. So I decided to do the run. And then early in the run, there was one of these salt stations, base nutrition salt. And a girl was handing them out. And I figured, I felt good at the time. She said, "Do you want one?" And I told her, "I'm a public school teacher. If you're giving it for free, I think I'm required by law to take it. I mean, if it's free, I'm going to take it." So she gave it to me. And then she asked me the weirdest question. At the time, I thought was the weirdest question. She says, "Do you know how to use it?" And I looked at her, well, I'm not an idiot. It's something you put in your food, right? So I know how to eat. Yeah, I'm fine. And I downed the whole thing. It's about the size of like a lipstick, and it's full of salt. Yeah. But I didn't know. So I just flipped the cap, and I put the whole thing in my mouth, all of it. And instantly, every ounce of water in my body just sucked up, and I looked like a 90-year-old man with wrinkles. And I thought I was going to die because my throat seized up, and I was a mile away from the next aid station. And I got there, and I finally drank and drank and drank. Later on in the race, I passed another one of these booths, and I said to myself, "There's no way I'm taking that crap again." That was awful. But there was a guy beside me. He said, "I'll take one." And the lady asked him, "Good, do you know how to use it?" And he said no. And I remember looking at him thinking, "Are you stupid?" I felt so, I had nothing for this guy. I thought he was an idiot. Like, how can someone be so stupid as to not know how to eat? And he said, "No, how do you use it?" She said, "Well, what you do is you pop the cap, lick your finger, dab a little bit of salt on the tip of your finger, and just touch that on your tongue. That's all you need. You definitely don't want to eat the whole thing. That would be silly." Yeah. And so I thought, okay, well, no, I guess who's the idiot now? Yeah. But I ended up finishing. It was hard. I had to walk a lot, and walking in a race for me is, I just thought that I felt that was weak. Yeah. But as I was doing it, I wasn't the only person walking. So, you know.
Yeah, I think it's a common theme, isn't it, in those distance races?
Yeah. I mean, some of them you kind of have to, and if you have to, you have to. But at the time, it was, in my head was, it's swim, bike, run. Yeah. So if I'm walking, am I actually doing the race? Can I call it racing? Yeah. I'm completing the event, but can I call it racing? Of course you can call it racing. Yeah. Why not?
Absolutely. So so are you coached at all, or are you totally self-coached, or are you part of a club or anything?
I'm part of a team. I'm part of a Wadi Inc. Elite squad. That's the number one amateur team in the world. Right. But as for coaching, I coach myself. Yeah. And I don't coach any triathletes per se, but at school I'm a track coach, of course, and I'm the cross country running coach and the swim coach. Yeah. Which is kind of funny. I'm the swim coach. I was the guy who taught me in first grade. Yeah. But yeah, I coach those things, and I have a phys ed degree, and I've been training my whole life. Of course. So then as far as coaching, that's another thing. I was at one of my first races, and I was waiting to go to the bathroom before the race. You know how there's always a big lineup. Yeah. And everybody around me was talking about their training and their coaching, and it was intimidating me because I did it all myself. And I thought, oh boy, I'm not doing what everybody else is doing. I must be doing something wrong. And then I thought about that coaching. How can you need a coach to run and bike? Like, who doesn't know how to do that? But again, I understand, having spoken to so many people, that there's so much more to it than just going for a run and then going biking and swimming. If you want to train properly, there's so many different things you can do to get yourself faster.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess from your point of view, having the background that you've got as well, you're more knowledgeable than most people would ever be because of your job and what you've had your degree in and so forth. So that's totally understandable from your point of view. But yeah. I would say that most of the guests that we've had on the podcast have started off exactly like we all do, uncoached, but they've all had coaches in the end. And it's just like you said, it's a progression thing, isn't it? You can take yourself so far, but then to get that next level, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't have any official coaches. I have a few friends. Yeah. Like one of my friends is a massage therapist. He's one of my sponsors, actually, and he's a massage therapist for the Canadian national swim team, and he's an ex-swimmer himself. So he doesn't coach me on a regular basis, but when I need help, or I need, I find I'm stagnating, he'll give me a couple of workouts. Try these.
Yeah.
So that's kind of coaching. And I have another just general fitness training friend who will give me, usually when I get injured, he steps in and says, okay, let's start over your training again, and he'll build me back up to a point, and then I'll take it from there. But I understand. I like to do it all by myself. I don't train with anybody. So, and it's not like, oh, I think I'm faster than these people, or I think I'm smarter than these people. I understand that a lot of people I should probably have a coach. It's kind of like you hear on in the law, people say anybody who represents themselves in court as an idiot for a lawyer. So it's kind of the same thing. I have an idiot for a coach. It's me.
Brilliant.
But I just don't. It's also a time thing. You work all day. I have a young son, and I get up at 3:00 every morning just so that I can get a good session in before I go to work.
Yeah, sure. So you've mentioned your book a couple of times so far, and we'd like to give that a massive plug because I haven't read it yet. Apologies for that, but I will get hold of a copy. But I have read some of your blogs that you've done. Which are also very funny and entertaining, so they're good. So just tell us how that came about, how you got to write that.
As I said before, when I got into cycling, I read everything I could about every single cycling book that I could find. I read everything, hundreds of them, even ones I can speak French, so I read the ones in French and the ones in English and everything. And as I got into triathlon, I decided, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to read every single book I can find about triathlon. But I found that in terms of triathlon books, all I could really find were training techniques and training manuals and training diaries, which are all great, but they're not entertaining. You don't read it for pleasure. You read it to learn something.
Yeah.
And I found that the books that I had read about cycling that I enjoyed the most, like Lance Armstrong's book, there's no training techniques in there.
No.
But it's a great story, and it's not just about cancer. The biking bits are really good. You read bike about Greg LeMond and the Badger and the fight that they used to have, and that's great. But there was nothing like that. So I decided, I want to read that book. So if that book doesn't exist, I better write that book.
Yeah.
And I remember when I started writing the book, I was watching my son's soccer practice in the middle of winter, indoors, of course. And I said, okay, I opened up my computer. I had been doing lesson plans for school. And I said, okay, let's start writing the book right now. And I wrote the first paragraph that exists in the book. And that's the only paragraph. I sat down and I wrote that in about 5 minutes. And I looked at it and said, that's pretty good. But I have nothing left to say. It's all there. I don't know what else I can say. A, and B, that one paragraph is the only paragraph that has never changed in the book. There's 350 pages in the book. Every other word was changed and messed around with hundreds of times, except that first paragraph. But the book it's not just about triathlon. It also talks about my upbringing and how that got me sort of into triathlon and parallels between things that happened in my life and things that happen in triathlon. It's kind of like my blog posts. They never just talk about triathlon.
No.
There is a story, and then I bring in triathlon, and it's up to the reader to make the connection between the two.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty much the story of my book. It is all the reviews that I've had. Many of them are from people who have never done triathlon before. And they'll say, the things that I read in your book, I remember that. I remember that something like that happening to me. And that's been great to hear that kind of stuff.
And how long's the book been out? When was it published?
It went live on May 1st. So it's been out since May 1st.
This year?
So not even a year yet.
Oh, right, okay. It's recent.
Which is kind of... Yeah, it's been rough, sales-wise, because we've been in a pandemic.
Yeah.
So when people order it, it doesn't take long anymore to get, but it used to take a long time because, people, at the beginning of the pandemic, deliveries took a long time. But it's been selling.
Yeah.
Mainly you can get it on Amazon. That's the easiest place to get the book.
I was looking at the Kindle, actually. I was going to get it on my wife's Kindle and have a read on there, but... Yeah, I might get the the hard copy instead. I don't know yet, but I will get it because I'm looking for. After reading some of your blog pages, I'm looking forward to reading it now. So yeah, it'll be good. And there's a similarity there with you and Rich Roll.
Yes.
Yeah, I listen to all his podcasts and things because he's got a story, and he's quite eloquent in his language that he uses, and he's entertaining. But his backstory, although he involves triathlon as well, is very similar to how you're approaching your book, by the sounds of it.
Absolutely. In fact, that was his book. Was the last book that I had finished. Actually, it was the second time I read it before I started writing my book.
Yeah.
And not to put myself on his level, but they're very similar in our approach.
Yeah.
I mean, I was never a substance abuser or anything like that, like he was, and I'm not a recovering alcoholic. But the stories are similar. He talks about his triathlon and his athletic background, but there's also it's woven in with stories from the rest of his life.
Yeah.
And that's the way that my book sounds as well.
And you seem to approach the same, the distances the same way, pretty much on your own, and you'll just go off and do it. And he's very much like that as well. He's his own person, and he'll go off and train, and that's it. That's what he does. And you sound like that's the sort of thing that you'll do as well. So a lot.
Absolutely. I find the similarity between him and myself to be quite strong in that, and it's one of the, I guess, kind of why one of the reasons why I don't have a coach is because I will just get up and I'll plan out a 12-kilometer run, but I'll come home 40 kilometers later just because it was going well.
Yeah.
And when I'm out there, that's why I also don't train with others. It's not because I don't like people, but I have a full-time job. I have a family, and that's my only time to open up my mind to everything else. And that's where I do all my thinking, or that's where I do no thinking.
Yeah.
Depends on the day.
Yeah.
Both of them I like.
Yeah.
It's just complete freedom to get away from everything else. I don't even consider it training.
Yeah.
But then you come back home and I go on Strava and say, oh, geez, that was a good segment, and I got the King of the Mountain there. I didn't even know I was trying for it.
But I think
it's like that.
Yeah, it becomes it's a lifestyle, isn't it? It's not a chore. It's just what you do, and it's like you said, it's a release, and it's part of your life.
Exactly. It's not even. I wouldn't even call it a hobby.
No.
Or it's just
It's like eating a meal, or it's like one of those things that you just put in your day and you do.
Absolutely. And if for some reason, if I choose to not go running or not train, then I'm still not myself. But if something happens in my life, like a staff meeting after school, and I had planned on going running, if you take my training away from me, if someone else takes it away, oh boy, I'm not a fun person to be around at all. It's just like I guess there must be some sort of addiction there, because I absolutely 100% cannot live without it. When I'm injured, that's a rough time for me.
Yeah, it's so frustrating. Yeah, I mean, I'm just getting back from a calf injury, and I haven't been able to run for a considerable amount of time, and just getting back to running now, it's just so good. I have missed it so much. So I can totally appreciate where you're coming from with that.
Yeah.
So let's hope then, from your, Rich Roll took ages to establish and develop, and his book got him to a certain point. In fact, I was listening to he was on a podcast yesterday I was listening to, and I've read the book and I listened to all his podcasts, but I was reminded how you look at him now and you think how well he's done, but it was a long old road. His book didn't, it wasn't a bestseller overnight, as he said on his podcast the other day, and so, patience. All it needs is somebody to get hold of it, read it, and bang, off it could go. So let's fingers crossed and hope that's what happens.
Yeah, let's hope you're that guy.
I wish I had the backing and the know-how and the knowledge to be able to help you there. We'll plug it on here and.
No, but I think your podcast it's an excellent idea, because you're right, and it's the same thing with my book, in the sense that there are podcasts where they have Chris McCormick on it, or Dave Scott, and all these professionals, and Jan Frodeno, and that's great, and they're really interesting. I'm not saying anything bad about them, but I can't relate to Jan Frodeno. I don't do a 2:40 marathon at the end of an Ironman. Like None of us can.
Yeah.
I want to hear people that are kind of like me, that, like you said, we plod along, we go through our day, we have a job to go to, we have families. That's not Ironman and triathlon training isn't everything.
No.
It's really important to us,
Yeah.
but it's not the entire thing. And I think you're doing a great job, by the way.
That's much appreciated. Yeah, so hopefully your book will sell fantastically well, and you'll get to where you want to get to, and this will just also expand, and we can help people along the way, because that's what we're doing it for not for people who are actually in the sport, maybe, or people who are just starting out. I think it gives them stories that they can aspire to. That's the thing for me. That's what I want to do. I want to inspire people and show, well, look, this girl's done it, you can do it as well. They didn't start off becoming an age grouper. They started off right down the bottom, being scared to get in the water.
Exactly.
So that's it, and it's just hearing other people's stories and how they've progressed, I think, inspires people, or I hope it does anyway. So. And
I think also with the sport of triathlon in general, maybe it's because there's 3 disciplines, so we're open to at least 3 things.
Yeah.
I've yet to find someone at any race anywhere who was nasty. Everybody's so welcoming and open, and do you need help with your wetsuit? And do you want, your tire's flat, I'll help you pump it up. And it's just wonderful community. Yeah. Everybody's so friendly. The vibe that you get before a race, and I've raced in South Africa, I've raced in Australia, I've raced in North America. It's all the same everywhere.
Yeah.
Everybody's so friendly. But in other sports, certainly when I grew up playing hockey, it was the exact opposite. There were many fights. But even running races aren't like that. People tend to stay to themselves, and it's like, I'm going to hide how good I am, and you can see there's intimidation tactics. Not in triathlon, nobody cares. Yeah. I mean, I remember last year at the World Championships in France, my team had a little photo event beforehand, and they said, bring your bike along and get kitted up for the picture. And my bike is a second-hand bike that I bought off the internet because I'm a teacher and I can't afford a 9,000-pound bike.
Yeah.
And one guy said, wow, you're going to race on that? I said, yeah. He said, well, more power to you. It looks like a nice bike 6 years ago, but it looks like a nice bike. But he wasn't judging me. It was nothing like that. But in running, you'll see if you have like old trainers on, they kind of look at you like, really?
Yeah.
You're going to try racing in that?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's all I got.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So, what hints and tips can you offer for people who are starting out in our multi-sport adventure?
Well, the first tip is if you buy a wetsuit, try it on before your first race. No, but frankly, the biggest thing that most people have is they're a little intimidated by the grandeur of it, because it's 3 disciplines. Every race has a lot of people in it, but you just got to take it. Just first of all, do it.
Yeah.
Get up, start running, start swimming, start biking. Just get used to that. Get comfortable with that. And then when it's time to get in a race, don't worry about thinking you might be the slowest person there. First day, I guarantee you won't be. There's always somebody slower. Secondly, even if you were the slowest, nobody cares. Everybody's so friendly. First place person will finish the race and come and cheer you on to finish. 100% of the time. It's a wonderful event that way. But in terms of specifics, if you don't have a swimming background, get in the pool. That's one thing where maybe a coach is helpful.
Yeah.
Because even though it's the smallest part of the race and sort of the most insignificant time-wise, it's the part of the race where technique matters so much. You can fumble through a run just on grit, and same thing with a bike. But in swimming, if you're not doing it right, you're going to waste so much energy right at the beginning of a race. And when you don't have to, I finish the swims now, and I'm fresher than when I started. It's a warm-up.
Yeah.
Because I know how to do it properly.
Yeah. That's a great way of looking at it. Yeah, actually, I've never thought about it being as saying it's a warm-up, but yeah, that's a great point.
It is, because if you look at the swimmers, that's the other thing. I don't have a swimming background, but it is by far the most beautiful to watch when it's done right. Because it's so relaxing to the people who do it properly. And then you see others where you can tell, oh, you don't swim very often because they're just thrashing. There's white water everywhere.
Yeah.
And they're wasting so much energy that they don't need to waste. It's kind of like, as a running coach, that's one thing I look for in my athletes. It's like, you're moving left and right too much. Don't you want to go forward?
Yeah.
And let's put all our movement into getting forward. We don't need the side-to-side stuff. So those are things where a coach might, if you're an absolute newbie and you have the financial backing to do it, maybe a coach is a good idea.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, wise words. Yeah. What's your favourite piece of kit that you own?
My favourite piece of kit is probably, my team speed suit is pretty cool. If you ever get a chance to look at the Wadi Ink speed suits.
Is that the yellow one?
That's the yellow one.
Yeah.
It's
I've
really
noticed
nice.
it.
But I have my favorite piece of kit that I've never raced with it because it's my gravel bike.
Right.
But I just took that up this year. I did a lot of mountain biking when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But gravel bike, I really love that. I mean, I've been thinking of that. Maybe I don't. I know there's terra races. There's like off-road triathlons on a mountain bike. But I don't think there's anywhere the bike.
I don't think it's
gravel.
I don't think
that would be great.
Yeah, I mean gravel biking, like you say, is becoming a lot more and more popular. But I don't think it's crossed over into multisport yet. Not that I'm aware of. I mean, it might be the odd race, but not. I think it needs to develop in a sport on its own, maybe first.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's developing quickly though, because all the races in the US anyway, there's lots of them.
Yeah, it seems to be taking off over there a lot quicker than it is over here. Obviously, they've got the environment to do it. Where I think in the UK, I think there are places, but I think they'd struggle. But let's hope it does. I mean, because it's another event, isn't it?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. So how's the future? Sort of like your immediate future and your longer term goals looking?
Well, immediate future has changed since the pandemic started, right? I was supposed to be racing next month in New Zealand at the World Championships.
Yeah.
But that was the first race actually in March. They canceled that right off the top. Boom, it's done. And there were still other races that you'd get to 2 weeks before and then they'd cancel it.
Yeah.
But that one they canceled a long time ago. Everything, I didn't race once this year.
Right.
Well, since March. Well, since last summer actually in France. I haven't raced. But I do have plans to race. I'm signed up for Ironman 70.3 Connecticut, which is early June.
Okay.
And then Ironman Coeur d'Alene, which is in the west of the United States. That's a full Ironman. That's in late June.
Okay.
And after that, I have Ironman 70.3 Muncie, which is right in the middle of the United States, kind of flat. I did it last year. It's a great qualifying race for the world.
I was going to say, are these qualifying races?
They're all qualifying races. Yeah. I'm hoping that full Ironman in Idaho, I want to qualify for Kona. There. Cool. That's the plan. That's if you want to sort of semi-medium long-term plan. Yeah. I would like to be racing in Kona next October. And after that, once I get that done, then I'm not gonna drop triathlon, but I'm gonna keep doing it. But as we were just saying, I plan to enter a bunch of gravel bike races and see how that goes for a while, and maybe get back into ultra marathoning a bit. So I start doing long distance events, double Ironmans, things like that. Sure.
Good. Yeah, that sounds well. You've got a plan, and that's all we can have at the moment, isn't it? So
that's right.
Yeah, that's the main thing. So how's lockdown been over there for you guys? Because you don't really hear much. You hear about the States, and we hear about Europe. But I've not really heard much about Canada and how it's dealing with it.
Well, I live in Quebec, and this province is dealing with it. Well, it's not that we're dealing with it the worst. We have the worst numbers.
Right.
We're the most European, and maybe that's why we're very community-oriented. We like to touch each other and hug and kiss on both cheeks like the French do. And so our numbers are higher.
Yeah.
But since the beginning, right away, the first thing, like my last swim that I did was March 12th of this year. Right. And I have not been in the pool since because they've been closed.
Right.
And though I live really close to a river, it's still, though I'm good at swimming now, or better at swimming than I used to be, it's still the part of the triathlon that I have the least comfort with.
Mm.
So, and I knew I wasn't going to be racing. I'm not racing till June. So I didn't even worry about swimming. I've just been training. Everything else has been open. Like they never said you can't go out of your house like in Europe, you can only go 1 kilometer away.
Mm.
That never existed here. If it was outside, you could do whatever you wanted.
Yeah.
So it was still snowing when I started my biking and everything. So in terms of that, what I did, even though I knew I wasn't going to race all this summer, I trained as though I was racing. So the intensity was high, the distances were high. And now I'm in what would have been the off season anyway. So I've kept the length of time that I train the same, but the intensity has dropped just so I don't get injured. And I'll sort of slowly ramp it up around Christmas time, drop it back down, and then bring it up again, hoping that everything will get better.
Yeah. Let's hope so. Yeah. Sounds good. Let's hope. We don't know what's going to happen, and we don't believe anything will change until they get a vaccine for us all. So yeah.
Pretty much. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and he's a physical trainer for a doctor in the Montreal General Hospital, and she's in the COVID ward. And she said over here in Quebec in Canada, we never administered a tuberculosis vaccine in our history, even though it's been around for 100 years.
Yeah.
And they've been testing that on people, and it mitigates a lot of the symptoms of COVID. So that's probably going to be the next step here. Even though we might not have a COVID vaccine, they're going to give everybody TB vaccine. And that should, all the people the asymptomatic people, won't develop COVID then.
Yeah.
So that'll drop the numbers a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Great. Well, that's a great place to finish. Thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure to speak to you and hearing your story. Much. Really entertaining. And hope that book does really well.
I hope it does too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed that. Thanks, Brock. Fantastic story. One that we can all relate to, I suppose is the word. And the book's even funnier than that conversation was. So, guys, if you want a funny triathlon, multisport related story for a bit of bedtime reading, this is the book to pick up. I'm really enjoying it, like I said several times already. So you can find it on Amazon. The title is My Co-Workers Think I'm a Pro. Okay, so that's it. That's an end of another episode. Thank you very much for listening. Much appreciated. And if you want to get in touch, you can email us at agegroupmultisportpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram at amp1967 and Facebook at ampgb. You can find us on Twitter at agegroupmultisportpodcast. You can also find us on our website, which is agegroupmultisportpodcast.buzzsprout.com. And also now you can find us on YouTube at ampgb. So give us a rating, leave us a comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. And don't forget, stay safe, keep training, and love the process.